Hi, I'm Jen Taylor, and today we're going to talk about something that I have been very passionate about: foster care. So you're interested in foster care and maybe you're not sure what to do. Here's my first piece of very important advice. Get started. Foster care licensing takes about 6 months. Maybe it could take you as little as 3, but it might take you considerably longer. Get in touch with the county that you live in and find out about their classes, their programs, when they start, and what specific criteria they may have. Just get started. Here's why. 1, it does take time to get licensed. But 2, it doesn't mean you're going to get called for a child immediately, and it doesn't mean you have to accept every child you get called about. So just keep in mind that having that license doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to have your house filled with 8 to 10 children that you've never met before. Just jump in and start getting it done. Now maybe you're there, you're in it, you're getting it done. I've heard a couple things from people after over 12 years of experience doing foster care and then several years working in foster care. I've heard several things from people when they're doing their application. One is that it feels like it's picking out a puppy because you have to make decisions on what you're willing to take. Maybe it does feel like picking out a puppy, but there's something that you need to know. Not all of us can handle every situation. I certainly followed this rule. You need to know what it is that you can handle, and more importantly, what things that you cannot handle. For example, I knew that I did not want to take children that had fetal alcohol syndrome. I didn't feel like I had the capacity to take those kids in and really do the best job. If you're a person who absolutely wants to work with kids with fetal alcohol syndrome, you should be the one working with them. You have an affinity for it. When filling out the paperwork, really look at everything that they're asking. Do some Google searches. Look at what specific things they're discussing and decide if it's something that you can take. There is also just taking gender. Do you want a boy or do you want a girl? Are you willing to take both? These things are important based on your past experience raising children and what children are in your home currently. One of the things that I heard a lot was that parents didn't want to take kids who've been sexually abused. Although I understand that, and that was originally on my list, I took several kids that were sexually abused. So even within a category, decide the level that you can handle. Taking kids that were sexually abused wasn't a big deal for me, but it did depend on the gender of the child and the level that they've gone through. Here's another common thing people say. It's so hard. I really want to help and make a difference, but watching them leave would be terrible. Well, it is. It's terrible to watch a child you've put a lot of time, effort, and love into and pack their things up and send them back to their birth parent or to somewhere else. You have to get in the right mindset for foster care. Your job is to love them like your own, knowing that ultimately what's in their best interest is reunification. And when it goes well, it is absolutely in their best interest. Your job is to love them like your own in the space in between. The space in between the abuse they came from and a better place that they're going to. It is a huge, amazing responsibility, something that you shouldn't take lightly, and know that although your heart breaks a little bit, you've done what you set out to do. You took care of them, got them to the next step, got them safe, secure, feeling loved, feeling more confident, for them to move forward. You can make an enormous difference in the life of a child in a very small amount of time if you have this idea planted in yourself that you're there for that space in between. It is very powerful, the difference that you can make. Another thing to consider is that there are several specialties within foster care. One of them is adoption. So I was always in the foster adoption program. I wanted kids that could come to my home and stay and not have to leave. That doesn't mean that I did not take in children that came and left, because I most certainly did. And I also took in children that stayed very long term. Of our 18 kids, 7 of them came from the foster care system. What a gift and a blessing to me. I've talked about what a gift and a blessing in the life of this child, but we are really the ones that end up being blessed. The growth and the joy and just the love that you'll feel, the blessings that these kids give to you is indescribable, even though, yes, it is tough. Some specialties are as easy as adoption. You would like kids that stay long term. Others are a little bit more difficult, and you really need to consider, do you have the capacity? You also need to realize that there is going to be additional training, because these are kids that need a little bit more. And for this example, I'm going to use kids that are medically fragile. Another example would be newborns. I knew a woman who was a single mom, and she only handled newborns. So she would get them from the hospital at 24 hours old, and she would get all their paperwork done. She was amazing. I don't know how she did as much as she did, as quickly as she did, but she was very, very good at taking in these newborn babies, kind of assessing them herself personally as to how this baby was doing, and getting all of their paperwork for Medicaid done for the state. You would pick up the baby from her at 3 days old, and we had one experience with this, and everything was done, and she had a list of information for you. It was a phenomenal ability for her to be able to do this, one that I didn't want to do, nor even understand how she did it. But because she was so fantastic at this, you can find a niche like that, like medically fragile, for example, kids in wheelchairs that need more. You can get the advanced training, and you can specialize with working with just those kids. If you have an affinity for this, I highly recommend you to run with it. We need people that want to specialize with kids that maybe just need something a little bit different and fill that niche. Sometimes when you're doing foster care, it can feel overwhelming. There are hundreds and hundreds of kids. You'll go on websites and look at all the kids available for foster care or for adoption and just think, holy cow, I can't even make a difference. There are just so many kids. And there are, and that's why if it's something that you have a passion for and you would like to do, you're considering, I am recommending again, just take the classes. I never went into the foster care system, although my sister and I should have gone through foster care. We went through all of the same things that I've read in the files that the kids have gone through. You don't need to have had this experience to be a great foster parent, but my journey was that I knew what these kids were going through because I had gone through it. In my 3rd grade year of school, seeing my teacher 5 days a week, she didn't remember later who I was. She was just being Carolyn St. Jean, a great teacher, and she made such a difference in my life. She made me know that I was special, I was worth it, I was smart, I was loved, and that things could be better. And that's all I needed in my life as an 8-year-old little kid whose life got considerably worse down the road. But I always could look back and know that to her, I was worth it. In foster care, you can make a huge difference and maybe feel like you're failing. Not only are you making a difference in the life of that child for the short term and feeling like you could have done more, to them, especially later, you're making them realize that to you, they were worth it. Maybe my example is a little extreme because we have 18 kids, but that one teacher making a difference in one school year in passing without even realizing she was doing anything made such a significant difference in me. Not only did it change me myself, but it changed how I parented my kids, and that I had the capacity to take 18 of them, regardless of where they came from. You too can make a difference. And one child, I was one child. You have no idea the ripple effect that you're gonna make. Being a foster parent, trying your hardest, feeling like you're failing miserably, not entirely sure what you're doing, wondering if it's the right thing. And I'm here to tell you, keep going. You're making a difference in the space in between, perhaps, but you have no idea the impact that that's gonna make, even years down the road. When you plant a seed, the flower doesn't bloom immediately. So jump in and become a foster parent.
If you've made it this far, click like, subscribe to the channel, and remember, every day's an adventure. Make it a great one.